And also eventually he became the main focus point for questions. From all around the world, questions would come to him, his name. Because, since he was a recognized scholar, there was no, people could ask him questions, and he had the authority to give fatwas, to reply to their questions. And at the same time, he wasn't a person who just sat in the back line. Okay, he was a person who would go to the front, and he would travel all over Afghanistan, from north to south, over mountains, riding donkeys, on foot. And it was said that even young men would tire with such exertions, but Sheikh Abdullah Azzam, no, he wouldn't tire. And he himself participated in some of the battles against the Russians. Among them was one of the most fiercest of battles, was the one in Jaji in 1987, the Ramadan of 1987. And he saw it as a sheikh. It was his job to facilitate the matter in every single way for the jihad in Afghanistan, in a way that no one else could do that. So one of the things he began doing was he began to write down firsthand the kiramat, the miracles of the mujahideen, and he began to record them. Okay, because as been said earlier, that the miracles, they increase as the iman decreases. So the miracles they saw there, the tabi'een, the sahaba, they never saw, and he wrote them down. So that it became, so those who wish to read about what happened, they can read about it without, knowing that a scholar wrote this, and it wasn't just someone writing this out of emotion. And in Peshawar, he would give lectures, to inspire the people, to tell the people whenever there's any problems concerning the Mujahideen, especially you have to realize that the Mujahideen, they are a force of voluntary people from different cultures. So when different cultures meet, there are always going to be a lot of misunderstandings. He was there to sort it out. He was the focus point for them. And he also participated in trying to unite the Mujahideen commanders. And he would say, one of the things he would say was that the Muslims can never be defeated by others. We Muslims are not defeated by our enemies, but instead we are defeated by our own selves. And history, has shown this again and again and again. That in fact it's Muslims that defeat themselves. And he would also participate with other leaders of other Islamic groups like Ikhwan, Jama'atul Islamiyah. He would participate with them to coordinate activities to make the jihad in Afghanistan as powerful as it can be. And so more and more so, he began, the jihad, as the jihad began to influence him, he influenced the jihad itself, as him becoming more and more central point for a lot of things. And he also traveled, and I have some of the photos, inshallah, that shall show the people some of the deeds I'm talking about. But he also traveled. He traveled to America, he traveled to Germany, he traveled to Malaysia. He was traveled to recruit people, to tell people things. And he would tell people things firsthand. So that then therefore there was left no doubt upon the person, who wanted to act, and whoever didn't want to act, not to act. He would destroy all doubts. So for many he became a role model. Okay, and he became a very prominent leader. And also, like I said, he became a very prominent person. And he would say things that that can only be said by a person who's been inspired by the very front of jihad. Because you have to realize that the people of the Mujahideen, they're always at a spiritual level that's way beyond anyone else. They always see things of reality, because the more taqwa you have, the more reality you can see. And he would come up with comments that, very small comments that would yet have very deep meanings. Okay? And inshallah I will go through some of the quotes, but one of the things he would say often, that indeed Islamic history is not written except with the blood of the shuhada, except with the stories of the shuhada, and except with examples of the shuhada. And if you go through Islamic history, you will see that this is the case. You look at the Sahaba, the first generation. You look at them, what they did as soon as Prophet passed away. They committed themselves to jihad fully. And he wrote many books, making very complicated matters very easy. He wrote the books, books I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, like Join the Caravan, Signs of Rahman in the Jihad of Afghanistan, Defense of the Muslim Lands, Lovers of the Paradise Maiden, Lovers of the Maidens of Paradise, Ruling of Working in an Islamic Group, Islam and the Future of Mankind, Tafsir of Surah Tawbah. All of these books, all of these things, it was at a spiritual level that if you read about it, right, you see clearly that he's made very complicated things very easy. And at the same time, he established a magazine so that people all around the world could find out about the jihad firsthand. and he himself set this up. It's called Jihad. It's from this magazine that a lot of stuff I've taken as well. So he established this. He established a monthly magazine. He also established a weekly magazine, a weekly pamphlet that would go out. Again, making sure that no matter whatever, information goes out from the kuffar to discredit the Muslims, they had an easily made reference that the Muslims could go back to find out what the truth was for those who wish to find out the truth. And just to go through one of his books, for example, Ilhaq bil Qawafil, he joined the caravan, which was originally written in 1987. Then he did the second print in 1988. He writes that it did not come to my mind that while I was writing this book, this treatise, that it would bring about such a great revolution, so that our numbers would increase close to tenfold. This is how much his small book, it's not a book of fiqh, a massive book of fiqh. It was a small book of fiqh, talking about the essentials a person needs, to inspire him and to get rid of all doubts. So the first thing he talks about, for example, is the reasons for jihad. He lists 16 reasons that would destroy your reason to do anything else. And then he talks about the obligations of jihad and how the Salaf did jihad. And he writes some notes about those who are coming to jihad, what they need to think about. And then he wrote about some issues of jihad that are confusing. Because you have to realize that whenever there's sincere work, there are people to confuse the matter. And unfortunately, a lot of the confusion will come from governmental scholars. They will try to confuse the matter. Is it jihad? No, it's not really jihad. We don't have Islamic Khalifa. This and that. And he would write as a person who's got a PhD in Usul al-Fiqh, as a recognized scholar, to destroy these things. And so therefore, the people who are looking for someone sincerity and also looking for someone from knowledge, these doubts will be destroyed. So he had a unique ability in making hard concepts easy, to make confusing matters easy, and yet do it in very small books. And also going through his defense of Muslim lands, what he did with that was that he went to the recognized scholars of the world. Okay, because a lot of people, there were a lot of sincere people saying, oh, so-and-so scholar hasn't said anything about this, or so-and-so scholar hasn't said anything about this. So he went to them personally. And for any of you who have been to a place like Saudi Arabia, to meet people is actually very hard. Make an appointment, this, that, but he did this. He went and he met so many different scholars, and he went to a gathering of scholars, and he made them sign. He said, if you agree with me, you sign. And they signed it. So therefore, again, destroying doubts amongst the people. So he changed the minds, the minds of the Muslims concerning the jihad, and because of that, the numbers, they increase manifold. And one of the things he said at this time was that the jihad, it must not be abandoned until Allah alone is worshipped. And jihad, it will continue until Allah's word is raised high. And jihad, it will continue until all the oppressed people are freed. And jihad is there to protect our dignity and to restore our occupied lands. And jihad is the way of everlasting glory. He believed in this. He believed in this statement, and he went out and fought, and he sacrificed his whole life for this. And he himself, he also inspired his whole family towards this as well. And like I said to you, not only did he bring his immediate family towards here, he also brought his father, okay, who at this time, if he was in his 50s, Sheikh Abdullah Azzam, in his 40s, his father's obviously in his 70s, but he brought him also to Peshawar, because he saw that this is not only best for me, for my dunya, my akhirah, it was best for them as well. And later on, he would say that I feel that I'm only 9 years old, 7.5 years in the Afghan jihad and 1.5 years in the jihad of Palestine, and the rest of my years have been of no value. So he's saying no value to the amount of time he spent studying Sharia, to the time he spent giving da'wah, to the time he spent trying to gain his PhD in Usul al-Fiqh. It shows the level of commitment that he reached towards. And at the same time, he was offered positions at different universities, to come back, come and teach here. You can have a high post wherever you want. But he said a very famous statement towards these type of offers. He said that لن أترك أرض الجهاد إلا بإحدى ثلاث إما أن أقتل في أفغانستان أو أقتل في بشاور أو أخرج مقبلا من Pakistan, which means that never shall I leave the land of jihad except in 3 cases. And this shows his resolution towards his matter. He says, either I shall be killed in Afghanistan, or I shall be killed in Peshawar, or either I shall be handcuffed and expelled from Pakistan. Is one of these three things. So this is what he saw was his future, and it so happens that one of these things happened. Again, it shows his spiritual highness. And he also used to reiterate that, and he made it clear to the people, and this enraged the enemies of Islam, that he said that after we established the Islamic State in Afghanistan, my aim then is to liberate Palestine. And a lot of people, they used to blame him. They used to say to him that, why is it that you've left? Why is it that you've left Palestine for Afghanistan? You're Palestinian. Why don't you go there? Why don't you stay there and inspire them? And he says, by Allah, the one besides there is no God but He. Afghanistan is not more dearer to me, more beloved to me than Palestine. Neither is Kabul more precious to me than Khalil, which is a city in Palestine. Rather, it was an opportunity that I availed myself to after the transgressors drove me out and came between me and spreading the word of Allah, the Lord of the worlds, in Palestine. So I went out into the world looking for a way to do some activity, i.e. jihad. And so then he says, so why are you reproaching me? By Allah, indeed Palestine is in our hearts and is in our tongues. And truly Palestine is part of our aqeedah, is part of our religion, and it is in our heart and our tongues. And the Muslims, they will never forget it. And at the same time, while giving all these speeches, all these darses, being a very businessman, he was an excellent example in piety, his devotion to Allah and his modesty in all things. People say that he had a very good ability to listen to the youth. Okay, he wasn't someone who thought himself too big, to listen to smaller people. And for this reason, he was very much loved by the people, wherever he went. And he was also, like I said, a very brave person. That, and he not only did he talk, but he committed himself to jihad, and he actually did jihad himself. And he would practice the fasting of Dawood alayhi salam, which is fasting on alternate days. And one of the things he would tell the people to fast either on Monday or Thursday. And also, one of the things he was very much remembered for is his azkar. He would always be found doing azkar. And in fact, I've got a picture of him with a tasbih. And in fact, he would say he would one of the times he was talking about tasbih, he would say to people that how is it possible for any of you to do some jogging and make azkar, and say Subhanallah 33 times, Allah Akbar 33 times, Alhamdulillah 33 times. No, it's very difficult, and in fact, it is very difficult to jog and make azkar like this. Okay, but he then said that if you were to have tasbih, you could do this. And in fact, for those of you who have ever tried it, you'll see that if you have a tasbih and you're jogging, you can do this Subhanallah 33 times, Allah Akbar 33 times, Alhamdulillah 33 times. And he would counsel his sons. He would say to them that build for yourselves trees in paradise by saying Subhanallah wa bihamdihi Subhanallah al-Azim. His own children say that he used to say this a lot to them. And even the people who didn't like it from the Muslims, later on, they admit that this man indeed, his character, his quality, his manners were indeed very high. One such group was a group of people who were staying in Peshawar, who began to claim that this man, he was squandering the wealth of the Muslims. And since these people themselves, they were there, right? They were sincere people doing work, and they needed wealth, they needed money. He would send money to them for this. And many years on, despite the fact that they used to abuse him and say to him that he's wasting the money of the Muslims, which he didn't. When they realized their mistake later on, they are quoted as saying that by Allah, we never saw anyone like Sheikh Abdullah Azzam. He would continue to send money to us even though we were swearing to him and abusing him. So basically, he didn't take things personally. When it was work, it was work. You can say whatever you want to him, it was work. And his wife, she says about him and his commitment to the work. And this is something she says afterwards, after he has been shaheed, because he was basically the media of the jihad in Afghanistan, and you can't praise a person to his face. It's very hard for people to say these type of things about him. She says, and I'm quoting her directly, she says that when asked about his life, she says in the house, she says that he was not a man who used to spend much time with us, because he used to devote his whole time to the Muslims and towards jihad. He would leave his house at Fajr and return at midnight. And even if he came back, in the day, he came back for some specific reason, or he came back with some guests and some of the brothers. in the jihad, and he would sit with them, and then after that he would leave.